Hello, children. This is Grandpa Joe again, and this is going to be a continuation of good old school days. So we got to high school in Georgia, and and I'm doing okay with, you know, um, making sort of friends, but never made any real close friends. Okay, no best friends, because this is high school, and these people spend time outside of school with each other doing things, and that's just something that I couldn't do. I couldn't you know go with them to their house, or participate in any out out of school type activities, right? So they would get together and do things, and I couldn't do that. My dad wouldn't let me. So that kind of put distance between me and people who would otherwise, may have been, lifetime friends. I couldn't do anything with them, so that kind of put a, you know, damper on any type of, close relationship with anyone. So, but I was doing okay with regular, the other students, but I was having a bit of difficulty with some of the teachers. So, as I said, I was forced to take geometry without knowing algebra, and I was doing extremely bad. Okay, trying my best to get caught up, and I talked to the counselor there at the school and explained the situation to them, and it's like, well, we'll try to get you a math tutor, one of our seniors, and maybe they can tutor you um, after school or whatever. I said, well, yeah, after school is not going to be good, um, because I can't, like, there's nobody to pick me up, so I need to ride the bus home. But so she said, okay, well, we'll try to make time where we can, to so you can meet with this high school guy, and try to get you up to speed in algebra so you can do better in geometry. So started doing that, and was learning, uh, trying my best to learn it as quickly as possible. Well, I was making terrible grades, like 40s and stuff on tests. And again, this was close to the middle of the school year, right? And I got sick, right? So this is wintertime, and we were from Florida, and um, I have issues with my lungs. When I was 6 months old, I had pneumonia, and it left my lung scarred. It also, ruined my teeth. So they, at 6 months old, they just pumped me full of antibiotics, which has, discolored my teeth, and, I'm sure my bones too, right? I don't know what exactly they gave me. They told me that was going to be, my parents, that was going to be one of the side effects, right? And so, you can see that I have pretty messed up dark teeth, and that's because of all the, you know, drugs that they gave me as a 6 month old to keep me alive, basically. So, anyway, so I contracted pneumonia, and so I am out of school for 2 weeks, hacking up pieces of my lung, basically, and um, avoided going to the hospital, but I had to again, um, stay resting, and on a lot of antibiotics, right, to get this fluid out of my lungs, as in both lungs. And so I get past this and go to school, and the day I come back, the math teacher um, slaps a test on my desk and says, "Here's your midterm. Good luck." Right? And the other two guys that I met, they look at me in disbelief, and they're like, "Wow, I can't believe he did that to you." He's like, half of that is basically stuff that we went over when you were sick. And he's like, "Man, I can't believe he did that. That's wrong, man. He's doing you dirty." And so, of course, I failed the dang thing, So now there's not a chance that I'm going to be able to, even with the tutoring, there's not a chance that I'm going to be able to catch up now and pass geometry. So I'm failing, right? And I think my final, I barely passed, right? But I was getting better. So I ended up failing geometry because of this jerk teacher, right? Well, so I was in college curriculum courses, and one of those courses was 500 word theme. And to start off with, I was doing really good. So, and this was the next year, right? And the teacher in that class was the math teacher's wife, right? And so the first theme that we have to write, she goes over what we're supposed to do. And so I write it up, and everybody turns in their papers, and then she's, discussing the papers with us, and she's like, obviously, you guys don't understand. So this is a college, preparation class, and this is extremely important to your college, career. Your time in college is going to depend on understanding how to write. And I'm looking at these papers, and it's just like, I don't know what you're doing. It's like you're not doing what I told you. And I don't know if it's you just don't understand, or you're just incapable of doing this. So, but you guys need to figure it out real quick, or you're going to have some problems. And it's like, seemingly there's only one person that knows what they're doing in this class. And so I'm going to, use their paper as an example of how to do it right. And so I'm thinking, yeah, okay, well, I'm screwed here. Things have gone from bad to worse. I thought maybe I'd be able to do better this year. And then she starts reading my paper, and I'm like, oh, thank God, So I'm like, great. And I was doing well on all that, and then got sick again, right? And so I was out for, again, 2 weeks, close to 2 weeks, with pneumonia. And I'm in Algebra 2 now, and I was doing well, right? Getting A's and B's, but doing really well. And kept progressively getting better as the year went on. But so 500 word theme, I was doing well on all the work, right? All the major papers and all the minor papers, I was doing well, and getting A's on everything, and occasionally a B. But I got sick, and I don't know what it was, but even when I came back, I had a problem sleeping. I don't know if it was stress or whatever, but there was about a week and a half where I did not sleep at all. So I was losing my mind. Okay. And this time that I was out, she gave me zeros on all the papers, and I couldn't make them up. And when I talked to her about it, I said, well, that's the way college is. This is a college preparation class, and you missed like a midterm paper, and you missed, this many, so I missed like 2 major papers and a midterm and a major paper, and like every day was a theme, and I got zeros on all those. So that brought my grade down, all zeros. So that brought my grade average down to failing. That 2 week period, and then the next week after that, I wasn't doing so good because I was losing my mind, and there was a couple of papers that I just didn't do, because like I was just in a fog. And she'd hand out paper. I wouldn't even remember it. Come in. Hey, did you get your paper done? I'm like, well, what paper? And I was like, we're supposed to do this, on this topic, whatever. And it's like, I don't even remember, man. It's like, because that was the first class, and so it was just horrible. And I was doing really good in just about everything else except this class where everything else I was able to make up, but she just refused to let me make that up and gave me zeros on everything. So I ended up failing. Even though I was doing better than everybody else in the whole class, I ended up failing just barely, right? Failing the class because she gave me zeros for that, 2 week period. So angry. And I think it had something to do with, her husband didn't like me either, right? But I didn't have him that year for math. I had some other guy doing algebra 2. But they had this thing, the Beta Club, right? It's supposed to be for all the smart kids, right? And I was asked to join the Beta Club. Now, this was after, I was those first papers or whatever. And like her and her husband were like the leaders of this club or whatever. It was their club. And because like they were, supposedly the best teachers at the school. And so I had done really good on those themes. And she was actually collecting she wouldn't return my papers to me. So she would tell me, she said, listen, I'm going to keep all of your papers to use as examples for future classes. So the only paper she handed back to me was one where I got a C, and she handed that one back. But all the rest of them she kept. So, she asked me to be in this little Beta Club thing. And I'm like, no, it's okay. And it's like, well, what's going to help you, blah, 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 blah. I said, no, I'm not interested in being in your, club. I don't want to be in your smart people club, And it wasn't that I was being cheeky, but I couldn't, because this was after school, stuff, that they would get together and whatever they were doing, and there's some money involved in it, right? So that's not going to fly. So no, I'm not going to be in your club. And I don't know if that was the reason why she did what she did, but so her and her husband were both jerks to me. And but I got through. That was the only class I failed. So I failed geometry and I failed her class, right? But I did well in everything else, right? I think it was biology that year. Well, then my senior year of high school, and so I did good. I got an A in algebra 2, and then the next year is pre-calculus and trigonometry, right? So I'm back with, Mr. Clark, doing calculus and trigonometry, and that was the year I also had chemistry. Well, I was at this time, I was, doing really well. Had my, mind on track. I got through that funky period, and now I'm doing real well. And so I'm killing it in chemistry, and it's just basically me and the professor talking during class, and it's like because nobody else could comprehend what was going on, And so I was acing that and had a good interaction with the professor there. And when we talk after class even, about stuff. And so me and him got along really well and had a good teacher-student relationship. And then I was also doing good in pre-calc and trigonometry. So I had caught up on the algebra through Algebra 2. Now I'm caught up. Now I know what I'm doing. And so going into trigonometry and calculus, I was killing it, right? So much so that everybody was wanting me to help them, right? Which was good for me because there were some pretty girls that needed some help. So every morning, I would meet up in the gymnasium with like 3 or 4 different girls and help them with their pre-calc and with the chemistry stuff, right? And one of them was this girl I was in love with. And so I, gave her all the help she needed. Let her copy my homework, try to explain everything to her, right? And so we helped her study. Now I couldn't, of course I couldn't go over to her house or anything like that, interact outside of school. But in school, I could sit and talk with her and the other girls and help them out with the stuff. So it was good for me. So they would spend their time with their boyfriends or whatever, but in the mornings they all belonged to me. So it got towards the end of the school year, right? And Mr. Clark was looking through his books, and he says, well, it's getting close to the end of school awards, so let's see who's going to end up getting the award for pre-calc, because each of the classes at the end of the year, they would give an award for the best student in that particular class, right? So you get an Algebra 2 award, Algebra 1 award, a Geometry award. So I got the Algebra 2. I definitely did not get the Geometry, right? So see who's going to do it. So he's looking through the books and he goes, oh, so look, this girl that I liked, oh, she's, looks like she's ahead here of everyone. She's doing, way ahead of everybody. And he goes, wait a minute. And he says, something's wrong here. And he goes, it looks like Joe Terhune has the best grade. And I guess in his mind, he was thinking that Amy was, I was, cheating off of Amy, and I was, stealing her homework because our answers were the same, right? So I'm guessing that's what he was thinking, that I was cheating off of her because, he had me for geometry and I absolutely screwed that up. And so here it comes to the end of the school year and I get the award for chemistry, but for some reason that year they didn't give out an award for pre-calc and trigonometry because I would have won it. So I guess he thought that I was somehow cheated or whatever, or he was just still, I don't know, just didn't like me. But didn't hand out an award for pre-calc that year because I would have won it. But high school was, is a fairly difficult time for someone who doesn't know how to socialize and can't socialize outside of school with anybody. And it was just, really difficult. But got through it, and they had the SATs were real important. I don't know how important they are nowadays. But back then they were real important, and that's how you got into college, was having decent SAT scores. Well, they have a PSAT, which is pre-SAT, so you can take this and prepare for the SAT, right? Well, it required $30, right, to do this, and so I didn't sign up for it, because I knew my dad wasn't going to give me $30 to do this test, so he didn't care. So I didn't take it, and the counselor comes around. It's like, Joe, I noticed that you weren't signed up for the PSAT. It's like, oh, why aren't you doing that? And he's like, well, no, I don't need it. And I was like, well, it's really important. You need to do well on the SAT in order to, to go to a good college. And I was like, that's all right. I don't need it. I'll do fine. Well, I did. I did fine, and I got like a 1400. So first time taking it, and I got a 1400. Scores are a little different now, but 1400 is pretty good. The 1600 was perfect, right? So I did really good. But anyway, high school was pretty good, all things considered, and I was able to make not close friends, but I had acquaintances and people that I could hang out with every now and then, but no deep connections to anybody, that's for sure, and no girlfriends, of course, which was really frustrating for a young man not to be able to even ask a girl out, like any of the dances, like the prom. Didn't go to prom, any of the school functions or anything like that. I didn't go to any of those. So, because I wasn't allowed to. So being left out of those was, pretty crappy, and not being able to, have a girlfriend or to be involved in any of that stuff was pretty crappy. So I did pretty good in high school. Didn't make a lot of friends, unfortunately, but did pretty good scholastically. And as part of the high school, the government sends out this test. This hours long tests that you need to complete. So I did that. Ended up in the 98th percentile. So I had every single recruiter in the world calling me and trying to come to the house to convince me to go into the military or whatever. Right. So that was fun. It made you feel real good. No, you're really super smart. Any chance that you want to get on a plane and fly over to some other country, get killed? It's like, no, not interested really. So anyway, but I did well enough on everything to, get accepted into the college that the only college that I could go to, which was North Georgia, because that was the only college that was close by. So applied and got into that. Otherwise, if I didn't get in there, then I had to go to a community college. So I went to North Georgia College, and went there 2 years before we had to move back to Florida. And did really well there. Did pretty good in all my classes. They were all business classes, which I hated, but it was college. And the first couple years were classes they were basically required to take anyway. So, and then any elective though, I took stuff that I was interested in. So I basically took whatever chemistry classes I could take instead of business classes. But did really well. Some of the things that stand out, biology. So biology 101. So and you'll learn this when you go to college. There's some professors that are cool and some professors that are jerks. And so we went to this biology 101, and the first thing the guy does, first of all, he's dressed up in like he's straight out of a Western, right? He's dressed up like a cowboy, and he's got these steer horns that he has hung over the door to his office. So he's like this wannabe cowboy in the middle of the Appalachia mountains, as far from Texas as you could possibly be. But anyway, he makes this announcement to the class. He says, I'm a very, basically I'm a very hard teacher, and it says no one makes A's in my classes. No one will make an A in this class, and many of you will drop out of the class within the first month as a result. And he was right about the students dropping out. So everybody that, pretty much could dropped out. And so there was, just a handful of students left. But there's no way that I was not going to make an A in that class. And there was another girl there as well that's like, screw you, old man. And so both of us defied the odds and made A's. I think the first in 5 years that to make an A and hit one of his classes. And then I took a class in was it I think it was finance. No, it was it was finance. And as part of this curriculum, there was this little computer program, and basically it was supposed to be a simulation of a negotiation between a union and a corporation, right? And so he gave us these discs, and we were supposed to go and run this simulation on a computer and then turn it in, right, once it was complete, once we had come to a settlement, right? So I turned it in, and it was well within the he had a limit, like after everybody finished simulation, then he told us whoever fell within this thing gets an A, whoever fell within this gets a B, that sort of thing, right? So when he told us that, it's like, hey man, I got an A plus, man, because I was way better than that score, right? And then he comes to me after class and says, I'm going to have to fail you for this project. I'm like, what? And he says, well, it's obvious to me that you somehow cheated. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And he goes, well, your score was too high. You shouldn't have been able to achieve that score on the program. And it's like, well, he says, you must have, done something to falsify the results in some way. And I'm like, what do you know? I said, I followed the simulation the way it was done. I said, well, let me, do it again and show you, whatever. And he's like, I said, do you have any proof that I did anything wrong? I mean, what's your evidence that I somehow cheated? I mean, how could I possibly have cheated? It's a simulation on the computer thing. How do you think I rewrote the program or something? And he's like, well, I'm not sure how you did it, but you shouldn't have gotten the score that you got. And I was like, well, this is ridiculous. And so I'm going to go to the dean over this I didn't cheat. That was a valid score, and I followed the instructions in the that you gave us. And he goes, well, he says, okay, fine. Then I want to get I'll give you a B then, okay? No point in bringing the dean into this or whatever. I'll give you a B, but I'm not going to give you an A because I believe that you somehow did things. And I'm like, whatever, fine. I'll take the B, just ridiculous bullshit. And then another class that I had was composition, right? 101. And so I take this the first year, and this guy starts handing out all these rules. I said, now, you are to do this. All the papers are supposed to be written on a blank sheet of typing paper. So no rules, right? And there needs to be a 1-inch margin all around, top, bottom, side to side, right? And, the handwriting and is counts towards your grade. And I'm like, what? This is a composition course. It's like I had crappy small handwriting that you could, it's hard to read. And so I ended up failing this composition course because of, bad handwriting, basically, and he was always like circling things and saying that they were misspelled. And it's like, no, that is an A. That's not an O. Is what looks like an O to me. So it's wrong, So because he couldn't read my handwriting, he basically failed me. And there's these dang girls with their fancy handwriting, looking at their papers, and they're getting A's, and he's telling me that I didn't write enough. Like, you only wrote, half a page, right? And this other girl, she wrote 2 pages. Well, I wrote more than she did, but she's making these big, her handwriting was just larger than mine. And so I condensed on my half a page more than her 2 pages. It's one of those things. And I'm trying to argue with this guy, and it's just going nowhere. So ended up failing. So then the next year, I took had to take composition again, it's required course. And I ended up getting the worst, what they considered the worst English teacher in the whole college, and his last name was Lael, and they called him Fail Lael. In other words, this guy fails everybody. He's super hard, and you don't have a chance, right? So I remember class starts, and the room is packed, right? And he goes up, and he's telling us his requirements or whatever. Well, everybody knew who this guy was. So, and he was saying it. They call me Fail Lael, and that's because I grade harshly. And I don't give any leeway. And I said, and if you are late to my class, don't come late to my class. If you walk in that door a minute after class starts and disrupt the classroom, he said, I will tell you to leave and not to come back. So, real harsh. In other words, if you're late, then don't come in the classroom, right? Just take the whole day. Don't come late and interrupt your classroom. Don't get up in the middle of my classroom, that kind of crap, And he, during that first day, kicked out two people who were scuffling around or making noise or whatever. And he kicked them out, get out of my classroom, go cancel this because I don't want you in my classroom. And so, like 3 days later, it was out of those over 30 people, it was down to 5. And out of the 5, only 3 of us passed. So 2 of the 5 failed. And I got by with a C. And he told me, he said, you write really well. He said, but your handwriting is crap. And said, you make too many spelling errors. Well, I know I had a problem spelling because I have dyslexia. And I told him, I said, well, I have, dyslexia. So spelling is, not the easiest thing for me. And he's like, well, I said, you'll do fine. He said, the Regency exam, which is a required test that you take, basically you write a compositional paper, and then it's judged by this board of professors, and they determine whether or not, it was good enough for you to graduate, right? So this was a test, compositional test, that you had to pass in order to graduate from college. And, was it like 50% of the student body had to take it more than once? So, real scary. Everybody was petrified of this Regency exam or whatever. Regents exam. And, he told me, you don't have to worry about it. You'll pass it with flying colors. And so, so the hardest professor, turned out, that he wasn't really the hardest professor because he graded fairly. This other asshole, was failing me. It didn't matter what the content was, right? How good the writing itself was. He was just looking at how pretty it was. Was it, did you have an inch margin? Is your handwriting real pretty with curly cues and stupid shit? I was like, I hated that guy. And there's just no way for me to please him because my handwriting was tiny and I couldn't, I tried writing bigger, but as I was writing faster, my handwriting got smaller and smaller. So, but anyway, that was the only negative thing through college was that one dude, screwing me over. And I got a C in Lael's class, which, I didn't like that. But for everything else, I was on the president's list, all A's or B's, in some cases all A, most cases all A's. So I was either on the president's list or the dean's list, the rest of the time, except for, those two little hiccups there. Um, Another funny thing about that was, I was not always the best student. I was pretty smart alecky, and I love to argue. And one of my favorite targets was uh, the um, the marketing. That's what it was, marketing or economics. I'm sorry, not so smart now, Pierce. Economics, right? Micro and macroeconomics. And to me, economics was just a bunch of bullcrap, right? Because they use these mathematical models um, to try to explain, um, the market, which is basically more or less controlled by people's emotions, right? Like pet rock. There's no infinite demand, infinite supply of these rocks, right? But somehow they're able to sell them to people, right? You can go outside and pick up a rock and put some eyeballs on it, and that's your pet rock. But yet they were selling these in stores, and selling millions of them, right? How does the market predict shit like that? It doesn't. And I was upset that they were using math to try to explain these economic principles, and but they would only use these models, the parts of them that made sense, right? So there were parts of these models where it didn't make any logical sense, so they were applied irrationally. And I'm getting these arguments with these professors, and it's like, well, what about this section of the graph, where it says that, you can, no matter how many more machines you buy, the productivity is not going to go up, or doesn't matter how many more people you hire, productivity is not going. You're not going to make one more machine if you hire 3,000 more people. You're going to make one machine more, and it's like, oh well, this parts of the thing, we're just going to disregard those. And I was like, well, that's not how math frickin' works. You can't just throw out the parts that don't make sense and only apply the parts that make sense to your models. I said, that's stupid. And it's like, well, that's the way, this, you don't understand, blah, 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 blah. It's more complicated than that. And I was like, well, then explain it to me then. If so, explain the complicated part to me, because I would like to understand how these things are actually applied. These are not, you can't, apply mathematics to, these economic theories of yours and just only use the parts that make sense. So that doesn't make sense. It's irrational. So I would spend days arguing with this economics professor, and I was making A's in his class, but he would get so angry and mad at me. We'd have these long debates, right? And he's trying to explain things, and I was just shooting him down, bam, bam, bam. And the rest of the class was like agreeing with me. What he said, it doesn't make any sense. Well, explain that, And it's like, so he'd go on these tangents, right, trying to defend his reasoning, which there's no defending it, because it's illogical. And he just gets so frustrated. And he told me and says, well, looking at your grades, it seems like you're doing really well, Mr. Terhune. So you have a grasp of what I'm trying to say. He said, but you're spending off on all these things, and you're depriving these other students of class time, and understanding of the course material. And, everybody else isn't doing as well as you. So you need to stop your, these long debates that you try to put me on, and, concentrate on the class material, and it's like, it's like, well, it's not my fault that this stuff doesn't make any sense. But so both Mac, when I showed up, well, the first class was macroeconomics, and the second class was microeconomics. And when he saw me show up to class, he says, "We're not going to go through this again with you, are we, Mr. Terhune?" It's like I'll try to give you a break. Except just, make sure when you tell them about all these mathematical models, just, make sure that you tell them that, this isn't a true, that these mathematics don't actually apply consistently to these theories. These are just our best guess. If you just say that, this is our best guess. We don't really know for sure, but these are our best guess. Then I'll leave you alone. So that's what he had to do. He had to preface and he looked over at me with a glare, and he says, when he would say that, these are our best guess. Oh man, so I'd won the battle, with this guy, which was hilarious. But 2 years there at North Georgia, and then I transferred to University of South Florida, which that was a much bigger school, and the commute was, more of a hassle than the classes were. But now we're in business classes, and it's like, oh, I freaking hate this. Is the most boring crap. I hate these classes. And so the last 2 years, I don't remember anything from any of the classes because I had zero interest in learning any of these things that they were spouting off about, And to me, it was just a complete and utter waste of time and, money, my money, because, like I said, I was smart enough that I got grants that paid for everything, and I think I had some school, as far as tuition and all that, and then I had to take out a student loan to buy books, right? So my test scores were high enough that I got college paid for, but I had to pay for books, and then so that's money that's going to come out of my pockets. So I made sure I bought the cheapest books I could find. And in some courses, I didn't even buy the dang book because the professor wasn't, really going to follow it anyway. So I would just, take notes and forget about buying the dang book. But, those last 2 years were just a blur. I don't remember. I didn't even go to graduation. Just give me my freaking diploma in the freaking mail. I don't give a crap about any of this stuff, And like I said, Dad, took off shortly after I graduated. I don't know, I don't remember, maybe it's 1 or 2 years after I graduated, he screwed off, to Ocala. So, don't go to college unless there's something you're actually interested in. And, don't go to college and take courses that you're trying to just make money. Okay? Take something that you're actually interested in, even if it's not going to make you a ton of money. Okay? Don't try to take, like, if you somebody's pressuring you to be a doctor or whatever, screw that. Okay? Don't go to college for something you're not truly interested in, because it's just a giant hassle and you don't learn anything anyway. It's just a complete waste of time. It certainly was for me. The only thing I got out of college was my sister, bought me a computer so I could do my coursework. And so having that computer basically was the reason that I have a career now, because that was something that I could get interested in, was the PC. But the rest of it, complete waste of time. It would have been so much better if I would have taken, went to school for some kind of chemist or an engineer like I wanted to. So don't let anybody convince you to go to college for something you're not interested in. Don't ever do that. And if you're not interested in higher education, then screw the whole thing. Learn a trade, or, open your own business. Don't waste your time and your money nowadays, especially. It's ridiculous. Don't waste your money and go in debt for the rest of your freaking life, just so you can get a piece of paper that says you know something. It's a waste of time.